All right. Hello, everybody. Welcome to this Zoom session. I'm going to be starting my camera. How's everyone doing? I can see that we have Debbie, we have Julio, we have Mike. How are you guys doing? You can type in the chat box. And we have an incredibly awesome presentation today. We're going to cover a lot of very important things. How to release fear, how to build up a sustainable self-esteem and core confidence, and what are the puzzle pieces to it. So go ahead and quickly drop me a note in the chat box, how you guys are doing. Dustin, welcome. And just say hello. In the chat box, I see it. Hi, hello, Debbie. Good to hear from you. And what I will do today is I will do about a 15-minute presentation. Hey, Dustin. A 15-minute presentation, thank you. And there will be a lecture. And after that, what we'll do is then we get into a Q&A session. And remember, this is the topic that billions of people are now waking up to the importance of. So I consider you guys lucky because this is something that I put my life, my entire savings, over $1 million worth of investment into studying the complex world of the subconscious. And what it has given me is way beyond miracles and descriptions that words can describe. Gave me my health back, gave me an amazing relationship, gave me the prosperity that I always wanted, but I always self-sabotaged. So what I'm going to do is share my PowerPoint show that I have for you guys. Give me 1 second, please. Okay. And advanced. Okay, I think this is it. All right, guys. So you should be able to see my screen. Let me see. Okay, so I'm going to go full screen here. And as you could see, the title of the presentation is The 5 Pillars of Long-Term Success and How to Improve Your Inner Game to Create an Awesome Outer World. Now, before I dig into this amazing presentation, would you agree that the outer world, and that's the quality of your life, that is the quality of your relationships, that is the quality of your financial health, would you agree that really is the function of your inner game, which means your inner psychology? Is it yes or yes? Of course, right? And this is what humanity has been waking up to, that whatever you want in life, you can do, you can become, and you can have, but you have to know how to do that. And the only common and core way to achieve your sustainable success or long-term success or your results, your outcomes, is by knowing how to program your mind, how to put out the vibrations, how to put out the right frequency to the universe so that it will reflect it back at you and you can have the physical experience. And this also goes for health. I used to struggle with very, very painful digestive problems. As you probably know, at the age of 42, I was partially paralyzed by a stroke. And all of that was not because of my diet and not because of all the physical things. It was because my inner game was off, really off, like way off. And, you know, I fought things. I was very diligent. I did the hard work and all the perfect, seemingly perfect lifestyle. But it ended up kicking my butt and I was on the floor and was forced to reevaluate my life. And the reevaluation has been over 10 years, day and night. And what I am bringing to you guys today is an amazing, highly functional, highly calibrated summary of what really works. And the one thing that if only people knew and applied, they could create that long-term success that deep down they truly want. So why don't we just dive right in? Since I talked about the 5 steps, step number one is setting goals. And you might have seen presentations on setting goals and the importance of setting the goal, but let's dive into what is really happening when you set goals. Now, do you realize that most people don't set goals? And then the question I ask, why? And feel free to interact with me. I have 2 computers up and I see a chat box. So if you want to give me a few of your thoughts as to why do you think that people don't set goals, and don't think that, in other words, there's no wrong answer. I really want to see your thought process. I really want to see, what your experience is. This is not me being the professor here, but rather have an interaction with you guys. So why do you think that people, or most people, don't set goals? Give me a couple ideas, please, in the chat box. Too busy, okay. Who else? Unaware, okay, Mike, that's good. Unaware, really good. They don't believe they can reach them. All right, Julio, that's really good. So there's the self-esteem. Okay, Dustin, my belief is that most people don't know specifically what they want. Okay, they haven't clearly defined what they truly desire. Absolutely true. So really awesome answers, guys. And I really appreciate your feedback, because as you can probably suspect, that if you don't set goals, you never started the engine. You're not going anywhere, right? So that's step number one. And then here's the second point. Like most people who set them won't achieve them. And we already discussed this, and you guys gave me some really good feedback. They won't achieve them because, and this presentation, the remaining 4 points will show you why. Okay. Now, I want you to know that if there was a mistake in the world to be made, I made them. Okay. So I made millions of mistakes. I was, I just ran into the brick wall and then the concrete wall, and, fell on my ass, and, had all kinds of financial losses. So what I'm sharing here with you guys is not textbook. It's extreme advanced knowledge that I sought out from incredibly rare and exceptionally wise mentors from around the world. And also I applied my own, or brought in my own life experience. So I combined the 2 here, okay? So only a few people who set goals or really achieve them. The question is why? Well, because I'll give you the answer, and you can also come up with your own answers, because it takes a lot of things, and you'll see as we proceed through the presentation why. All right. So let me ask you something here, and I'd like you to participate here. So I'd like you to set a goal. It doesn't have to be fancy. You don't have to use the SMART goal technique. Just make a decision that this is what I want. I'll give you guys about 20 seconds or 30 seconds to come up with something that you want. Okay, so decide on what you want. Decide a goal. Doesn't have to be big. It doesn't have to be anything spectacular. Just something that feels, the first thing that comes to mind. Set a goal. All right. And this is not a common question, but what character traits? Sleep well. Okay, Sharon, that's good. Okay, we can talk about this. And by the way, the second 40 minutes, or I'll go as long as you guys want me to, is about answering very specific questions. So if you have a challenge with something, I'll tell you what is going on and how to fix it. Okay. So now that you set your goal, I also want you to answer this. Like, what character traits do you need to have, or do you need to become to achieve this goal? And I'll give you guys an example. So say that you want to increase your financial well-being. Okay, what would the character trait be? Maybe more persistent, maybe more diligent, maybe whatever that is, right? So that's the character trait, is what you would need. Calm, okay, sleep well, all right. So I'm looking at Sharon's thing, okay? So And you can also write these things down because, again, this is about you guys, to show you how the subconscious mind works. Okay, so what character traits would you need to achieve this goal? And you can have one or multiple answers. And this, when you set goals, obviously you need clarity. And this is where I see a lot of people use affirmations and mantras, and they're all good. I affirm that I am capable. I affirm that I am good enough, and all of those things, right? We'll go into a lot more depth, but excuse me, guys. But what you could see is this is still a relatively conscious process. This is something that you can think and consciously access and tweak and change. And then from here on, I will get into the unconscious part of the mind where we will uncover why things don't happen and why things do happen. Okay, so let's continue. Okay, I see Julio. Record an album, characters, discipline, confidence, fearless. Awesome. All right, so I'm keeping these text messages, by the way. Dustin, move on to Texas, where I can start a new life and truly prosper. That's really good. Awesome. So we'll talk a lot about these, okay? So let's look at the slide. And step number one, which is the first part of the subconscious part, is work with your negative emotions. Now, some of you that have been exposed to some neuro-linguistic programming or some other self-development, then you understand that this is no joke. It looks and sounds so simple, but it really is the fundamental, the foundation of your awareness. And let me show you why. There are many, many negative emotions, and we have all felt them, right? Anger, there's sadness, and then certain flavors of fear and hurt. There's lots of guilt. Then the deeper stuff is the sorrow and the resentment, bitterness, and so on. So here's what I have seen, guys, and I've dedicated my life to this whole process. So I breathe and live this stuff. So I work with clients and have worked with hundreds and hundreds and maybe thousands of clients. I don't even know anymore. But what I see as a very predominant response to negative emotions is to suppress them. A very predominant behavior or response to negative emotions is to become scared of them, or to hide from them, or to misinterpret them. But to give you a very simple summary, the negative emotions are simply an indication that you need to grow beyond a certain level of awareness and certain level of your state, your current state. Okay, I hope this makes sense. So in other words, every time you feel anger, your anger tends to be, especially in the beginning, because the ego loves to misinterpret things, it tends to be pointing at someone else or at a circumstance, right? Oh, this person makes me angry. Or look at this economy, look at the president, look at this, all that, right? But anger at a very, very deep quantum level is always self-inflicted. It's always self-anger. We're always angry about ourselves because deep down we believe that we don't have the power, we don't have the capability to change our circumstances, right? And then there's sadness, of course, there's the losses and negative emotions and all that. And there's all sorts of fear. And fear is very common today, especially with the uncertainty and what's going on in the economy and, the lockdown and all those things. And we'll get into this. I'll show you guys practical steps that you can take to leave some of it behind. And of course, there's the hurt. The hurt tends to come from past traumas, interactions, humiliating experiences. And then at the bottom of the barrel, there's always guilt. And then the sorrow, the resentment, the bitterness, those are ancient emotions, okay, that are pretty much our ancestors and, had for centuries, if not for thousands of years. So how do you notice negative emotions? Well, I don't think this is rocket science, right? You can interact with someone and if they say something that you don't like, or they remind you of someone or something that you don't like, through the interactions, you can have this feeling like, wow, who are you? How dare you? Whatever the quality of the interaction is. So whenever you interact with people and it's not like something that is to your liking, then you will feel negative emotions through interactions. And that could be anger, that could be all the other emotions or negative emotions I listed above. So the other one that I listed here is called resistance. Now, this is huge. An average person has thousands and thousands of resistances to the flow. And what the flow means is that once we have the picture fully populated with all the bullet points, then you will see what is really missing for people, right? The flow is everywhere. It's in you, it's in me. But the reason why we don't have what we want, or the reason why we haven't attained what we want, and that could be health, that could be money, that could be a relationship status, is because deep down, and I know it sounds a little bit overused or maybe even cliche, but we resist it. You resist it. And this resistance has many, many levels, and it's not as simple as just resistance. Because, there are mantras and affirmations like, okay, now I allow greatness and abundance to flow to me effortlessly. Yeah. There's like, 1,000 oppositions to that. So reason why we feel negative emotions, because we resist. And one of the things that I would like you guys to like realize is that when you affirm something, or when you say a mantra, you might feel resistance as you say it. And that's actually really cool, because you see that is why affirmations don't really work for most people, because there are all sorts of oppositions and opposing thoughts. So as you say these affirmations, and I want you to create them, I want you to listen to people that you trust, I want you to really, really start affirming outcomes and that you want for yourself. And also we'll get into the I am statements later. But the moment you feel resistance, there is a necessity for you to realize that you are resisting your own mantra. Your inner stories, wherever they come from, past lives and ancestors, the resistance actually is stronger. It has the power to cancel the affirmation. And that is one of the many reasons why people are struggling with the law of attraction, all these things, okay? And of course, there could be, when you regret something, that would be a combination of emotions of sadness and fear and loss and hurt and all those things. And of course, there's the blame, inaction. When you don't take action, this is a kind of a new thing that Uli and I started teaching because we thought it was obvious, but it isn't. When you say something that you really let me say it this way. When your soul, your inner heart, your center really, really, really wants to do something and you don't take action on it, you actually will start building up negative emotions and you are chipping away from your confidence. So inaction, the not taking action on something, not moving forward, is a really bad long-term strategy. We see people do that all the time, and all it takes is just a handful of well-practiced inaction events, and then it becomes sort of a habit and it's a downward spiral. So make sure that if you have this inaction, not taking action, not really listening to your heart, not really listening to your higher self, then switch it around right now. I want you to decide that, okay, I'm going to listen to my heart, I'm going to listen to my higher guidance, and I am willing to do whatever it takes, okay? Because inaction is deadly. And then there's the loss and the grief. And by the way, I'm not going to get into that in this presentation because I teach it at the Expert Coach. Specifically, illnesses are created by negative emotions. I have helped so many deadly, things or illnesses or diseases people overcome because I know exactly what causes them. And you shift a few of those emotions, a few of those beliefs, and then a few other things that we'll get into, and all of a sudden the person magically, okay, miraculously recover, because we make ourselves sick, and not for the sake of making ourselves sick in punishment, but rather awareness. And what's lacking today, and this is what Uli and I have been doing for so many years, is creating awareness, teaching people how to get out of their stuck state, creating a momentum, a forward momentum in their life so they can step into their power and create the life they want. Because I don't want you guys to live the life I want. That's pretty amazing, but you need to live the life you want, okay? So there's the illness and unhappiness and so on and so forth. That makes sense, right? Just give me some feedback, guys, because I don't want to lose you. I want to make sure that this, even if you heard it before, this should register and should be relatable. So give me some, a couple comments, please, some feedback. same page. I don't know what that means, Julio. Oh, he gets it? Okay, okay. No, Uli's translating. Makes sense. Okay, cool. All right. You are correct. Thanks. All right. Thanks. Need a translator for my own quantum world too. All right, so let's move on. And let's look at the next one, which is work on your limiting beliefs. Okay. Now, a lot of the coaches and a lot of talks today focus a lot on this limiting beliefs, and that's cool because they are everywhere and they do sort of like they have a central place. And I wrote a book about this, and some of you know it, some of you already read it. It's really a kick-ass book. It took me 5 years to like really deep dive into the subconscious mind and find out what really drives the bus, or who really drives the bus, and why things come out the way they do. But let's look at a few questions here that are helping you identify, just or make you understand the concept of limiting beliefs. And before I really get into this, I want to tell you something that should put things into perspective right away. We've been teaching coaches and even therapists, with PhDs, this amazing technology that we have developed. And a lot of people don't know, and maybe some of you realize it, that life is meant to work. So in other words, life at the very, very bottom, underneath all of our conflicts, underneath all of this fear and the crap, it is supposed to be absolutely joyful, blissful, abundant, and easy and flowing. Okay, so anything that we believe, or you believe, or your friends or family members believe against it or about the flow and the ease is a limiting belief. And of course, most people are loaded with them. To give you guys an idea, most people have thousands of them. But what I want you to realize is that as you set your goals, don't worry about the thousands. I'm like Uli and I are like super coaches. So we help people with all areas of their lives. Focus on the one goal that you set. And then as you take a step toward it, you might feel negative emotions. Remember, your negative emotions are simply indications that something is in the way, something is really not aligned, okay? So don't run from them, appreciate them, and I'll show you guys a way to decode them, okay? So as you could see, a limiting belief, as I explained, a limiting belief is a belief that goes against a higher ease, a higher flow, a higher divine order, but because we've been loaded with them for thousands of years, it's very difficult for someone who hasn't really deep dove into the world of the subconscious to differentiate beneficial beliefs from non-beneficial beliefs. So let's look at a couple of questions here that would be, they're designed to loosen the grip. Are you able to create happiness, bliss, and joy without effort? Just ease into the question. Don't analyze it. Don't let the ego jump on it. Just go, are you able to create happiness, bliss, and joy without effort? Okay, I feel some of you go, not so easily. Okay, that's good. Be honest, okay? The next one, is your health radiant? Okay. And if you say not 100%, then all it is because in this presentation, at least 2 of these columns have relevance to that situation. And everything can be fixed and reversed. And we'll show you guys how. So the next question is, do you feel and experience negative emotions? Duh, right? Of course you do. That's part of our evolution and what you are supposed to do. And of course, that's not something that teachers teach in schools, is that how to not run from your emotions, how to face them, how to decode them, because facing them is not going to do a whole lot of good unless you know what to make of them. Would you agree? So here's one that I know the answer to, but do you use excuses to not do something? Okay, so these would be some questions that would agitate a little bit of the comfort zone of the ego. And whenever the answer is like affirmative, like, do you use excuses? Yes, I do. Okay, there's always because there's some sort of limiting belief or some other internal conflict. Cool. So step number 3 was work on your limiting beliefs. And I'm going to transition into the next one, which is handling your inner conflicts. And this is where I have experienced where a lot of people sort of like check out, including coaches and therapists. This is where things get more complex. This is where things sort of lose their linearity. This is where things become a lot more fun for me. But as you will see just in a few moments, these conflicts are the ones that really, really, really are not obvious, but they determine pretty much all of our outcomes and create sabotage more than a linear limiting belief. Now, what is a conflict? You've had probably hundreds of them. I've had thousands of them, but it's like, have you ever wanted to or said something, but you did something else? Have you ever wanted to go for something or do something, but something else happened, right? It is because at a deep recess or recesses of your inner mind, there are conflicts. And I don't want to overcomplicate the presentation, but I also don't want you to think that there's like a handful of them. There's many of them, but not all of them are relevant right now. One very common conflict, and it's not that obvious, but I'll keep things simple for now, is that especially young gentlemen have a conflict where a part of them want freedom and the other part wants love or relationship. But as you can see, the two are not in the same box. In other words, these two strategies or two values are not going to be able to be presented to the individual at the same time. So it becomes an either or. Okay, so our mind is like a computer. So this guy will either have freedom and then he'll dash around and do his crazy stuff, or then feels extremely trapped and not free should he enter a relationship. There are many, many, many more conflicts, of course. A lot of people have financial conflicts. You know, part of them wants to make money, but the other part is not feeling up to it. Maybe it has other considerations or anger or negative emotions about money. It's very common. Like, you know, I would love to make more money, but, you know, I would love to read that book, but I would love to, want to, but. So the moment you have some sort of a but, you know, like separating your independent clause, your sentences, there is a split in the mind and there's a parts conflict. Now, here's the problem with it, that it leads to indecisions. And this is not something that people know all that well, but when you feel like really, really intense negative emotions, it's typically a parts conflict. Like really, like you just want to go, you know, choke someone to death, right? Parts conflicts also create incongruence. If you, I don't know if you're able to read people's eye patterns or facial expressions, you don't even have to be like super well trained, but very often people say an affirmative sentence and their head is going sideways, kind of like the head is saying no, but the person is talking. So it's like a very strange incongruence. Here's the next one, is like a really, really common parts conflict for most people, but they don't know it. And that's why I'm making this presentation, so that you guys can be exposed to new information, relevant, very, very relevant information. Have you ever felt, or have you ever been pushed to a point in your life, in a circumstance, with someone, or, you know, in your dating world or at work, when you just simply didn't feel like giving a shit? Of course, right? It's like, and you have that, you know, practiced a few times, and we become sort of unconsciously indifferent. Now, let me explain why this is really a dangerous thing. Because the moment you become indifferent about something, let it be dating, let it be money, let it be, you know, love life, that other thing, the love life, money, becomes indifferent about us. Sort of the saying goes, what goes around comes around, right? And the reason why people have become so indifferent is because they have a very unruly mind, an undisciplined mind, and not because they are bad people. just because this hasn't been taught, to people. You have to be like super, super privileged to know it, and people really have to want it, and it also applies to you today. Like you really, really have to want this, and to know this stuff. Otherwise, you will not be able to apply it. All right. So indifference. What indifference does, actually, it masks a very, very deep inner conflict, and it is what is it? I forgot. Help me out. I'm looking to Uli. No, you weren't paying it. Okay, so no, actually, it's the avoidance of responsibility. So indifference is a mask for our lack of interest to be responsible for ourselves and to take responsibility. Okay, so you see, there's like the conflict between part of us wants to be responsible, the other part doesn't. There's now the ego designs this mask called indifference, and you might even say, well, I don't give a shit, right? Well, the problem with that is that actually it's a symbol of your money vibration. The moment you become indifferent, all of a sudden that affects what gets reflected back, all right? And what I'd like you to do, I can already like psychically see you guys like, holy shit, this is cool stuff, right? Whatever you felt indifferent about, forgive yourself for it, and start giving a shit, start caring, because that really, really turns things around. Okay? And this could be just a few things, 2 things, a handful of things. It could be dozens of things. I don't know. But whatever you do, always put your heart into it. Make sure that it comes from a caring place, a loving place. And you can then start affirming like, yes, I do care. Because you really do. You guys have incredibly beautiful hearts. But life has been sort of a bastard at times, right? And beat us up, and we became indifferent. So this is one of the core core stories, the indifference, and it's really keeping people in poverty, and it kind of maintains the broken heart. And the ego does not want you to know it. So I'm telling you, make a decision that you will give a shit. Okay, you let go of your indifference, care about what you do, really put your heart and passion into it, and then take responsibility, because that really is what it's trying to mask. All right. And when you take responsibility, and this is not a commonly known fact either, is that that's where you become respected by others. If we unconsciously refuse the responsibility for whatever reason, we all have our stories, then we will eventually erode our self-esteem and other people will lose respect for us. Cool? So that's how you do. You make a decision that you could do it with me, like, okay, I am willing and able or will take responsibility for my life. And it should feel really good. Just say it a few times. I am willing and able to take responsibility for my life. Yeah, because now you're turning on empowerment switch, the empowerment switch. It should feel really good. If it feels a little bit like, oh my gosh, what am I doing? It's like, yeah, just go with it. Okay, because we cannot afford to do the victim consciousness that has been around for centuries, because these new times and the new era requires every single one of you, every single one of us as leaders and light workers to really educate and help people come out of their subconscious sort of traps, because there are a lot of traps. All right, so let's move on. And a few other examples would be saying one thing and doing another, and what that leads to is people lose trust. Have you lost trust in someone? Of course, right? You have, and so have I, but all it is because we lost trust in ourselves. And that is why the moment you start taking action and you follow your heart and you really show up congruently, you show up authentically, and you show up, well, I'm looking for one more word, but it's not coming, but that's where you can like really commend that healing. That's where you begin to trust yourself, and that's where you begin to move forward. And with the moment you move forward, you are going to be building up your self-confidence, your momentum, and that's where things are going to be delivered to you piece by piece. Cool? And then when we lose trust, then we lose hope. Many people are there, and then of course that leads to inevitable failure. All right? So this was step number 4, where we handle our inner conflicts. And you could see step 2, 3, and 4 are all subconscious. Most people can relate to them somewhat, but a lot of it is just run on autopilot in the background as our operating system, and yet it creates every darn circumstance and all the outcomes and the results. All right? And then we're going to the last part, which is step number 5 in how to build a successful life. And let me just have a sip of water, guys, 1 second. Okay, and this is not something that people know too much about. This is my specialty, especially when I get into the quantum world and the astral psychology and the trickery of the ego. And you'll see why this is really cool and really important. So step number 5 is to heal your rejected self-concept. Now, please ping me in the chat box, folks. Like, how many of you know what a self-concept is? I'll explain it. I just want to get an idea of what your level of understanding is. Like, what do you know what a self-concept? Just give me don't give me a long explanation. Just like yes or no will suffice for now. No, Julio, no. Okay, perfect. Awesome. All right, now this is really good. Of course, the moment I explain, you're gonna go, well, shit, I do know. Okay, so a self-concept is an opinion that you formed about yourself. Okay, have you ever called yourself a loser? That's a self-concept. A self-concept also called a shadow character. So Julio, you're probably like hitting your forehead. It's like, oh shit, yeah, it is a self-concept, okay? But what we do as we live through our stories, and this could be thousands and thousands of years of stories, and then this travels in the DNA from generation to generation. Every culture has its own self-concepts. We reject them. And I'll give you guys some examples so you can go, holy shit, this is amazing. And why isn't this taught? And why is it the right time right now to like really get to know this stuff? Because whatever you reject about yourself, you have rejected it because it feels very heavy. And I'll give you guys an example. Like, when you say I'm a loser, I'm a failure, those are pretty light compared to what we really carry. One of the things that absolutely amazed me as I was going through my healing and my massive quantum level transformation upon another quantum transformation is how these things that I'm presenting on this page are literally running the show, taking away sensibility, taking away our power, and just presenting their own outcomes up until we get to know what's really going on and then start applying the techniques. In other words, if you know this, or the moment you know this, and you learn the techniques to apply, all of a sudden you get so much of your power back, you get your health back, you get your sanity back, you get your life back. Finances, of course. We'll get into that, okay? So self-concepts, the rejected self-concept that you have about yourself, and you know that because these are the things that we project onto others and we judge them. Look at that asshole. Look at that moron, right? So whatever we judge in others actually is our own rejected self-concept. Because we had rejected them sometime in the past, and now the ego designed a very sort of an interesting mechanism where we project our pain of separation, and now we see it in other people, but we don't see it in ourselves because it's been masked, all right? A very common self-concept or a shadow character, and this should really, really start putting things into perspective for you guys, for people who have health issues, is the killer. Okay, and that has been rejected because who wants to be perceived as the killer? And there's other flavors of it, such as the violent killer. You see, anything that we reject about ourselves, we don't really know because 95% of those things are outside of a radar screen or off of a radar screen. So we live our life, and as other people come into our existence through the laws of attraction, they don't care what you think about yourself consciously, they will mirror back who you are unconsciously. And what that means is that all of a sudden you see, I'll use the asshole example is like, why is this guy such an asshole, right? Well, because in us, we have a rejected self-concept of that asshole that we haven't healed. But it's so much easier to say that, oh, I'm such a good person, you know, I do this, I do all the right things. Those are sort of the masks. But deep down, underneath, there's a turbulent underworld of these rejected self-concepts, and these self-concepts are the invisible reasons for money, health, and relationship problems. Does it make sense? So this is, again, not a well-known fact that these unhealed, very deep self-concepts, and there's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of them, okay? If we don't heal them and integrate them, they will take away the finances, or the financial health, physical health, and then cause relationship problems. And because we fight against them so much at a conscious level and unconscious level too, we don't want to be perceived as such. Oh no, I'll do whatever it takes to be successful, or I'll do whatever it takes to not be that. And then the longer this list is of, oh, I don't want to be that, and it's unintegrated and unhealed, the more surefire way we are heading to burnout. And that's exactly what happened to me 10 years ago. You know, I don't even know how many thousands of these rejected self-concepts. Some were very, like, relatively easy and simple. Some were downright nasty. But because I was covering them up, you know, that's what we are taught. Be civilized, count to 10, you know, do this and do that. And you know what? It has its place. But if we don't heal what's really underneath, what we are masking, the mask becomes our identity. The self-concept begins to rage and gives us all kinds of cancer, all kinds of heart attacks, and major medical issues. So the moment you start to, like right now, I can feel you guys like, holy shit, this is deep. Yes, I only do deep. But I want you to know that this is what's happening. Look at this page. I'll leave it up, and I'll probably take a JPEG of it, or a BMP, or whatever, a picture of it, and post it so you guys can download it. Take a look at this, okay? So you could see like 80-90% of this is in the subconscious world. It is things that we actually can have access to when you know the right tools. And the moment you access it, the moment you start shifting it around, it will result in the beneficial outcome that you want.